In a tragic turn of events in Zamfara State, a Nigerian Air Force airstrike under Operation FANSAN YAMMA successfully neutralized over 20 terrorists and destroyed 21 motorcycles on May 31, 2025 in Maru Local Government Area, thwarting a planned attack on local communities. However, the operation was marred by the accidental deaths of 2 local vigilantes and injuries to 2 others, according to reports, prompting mourning and renewed concerns over civilian casualties in the ongoing fight against banditry. The airstrike targeting a terrorist hideout was launched following intelligence reports of an imminent attack on some villages. And while the operation disrupted the terrorist plans, the unintended loss of vigilante lives has sparked grief and calls for improved coordination between security forces and local vigilante groups to prevent such tragedies in the future counter-terrorism efforts. And now to discuss this, I'm joined by our Wing Commander Musa Isa Salmanu, retired, who's a security and development expert. And of course, he joins me from Abuja. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
And I also have Isa Sanusi, who is the country director, Amnesty International Nigeria. He also joins me from Abuja. Thank you so much, sir, for coming around.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Commodore Salmanu. Now, terrorists, according to reports, were killed, but we noticed civilian casualties. Now, these accidental stories are becoming one too many, but I'd like to get your view as regards this.
Well, so thank you so much. From the information available, and just like you stated, there was an incident of an attack upon which the Nigerian Air Force was called on to kind of offer close air support. And on that, the target was taken by the Nigerian Air Force, and there was the terrorists were actually hit, but there was a collateral damage that involved the death of civilians, 2 civilians, and some other civilian property. This is highly regrettable. This loss of life to always is something that is sad, and never should it be something that should be taken lightly. However, based on this, it takes us to look at the issues at hand, which is, for example, in this case, if it is truly what is said to be, which is corroborated by both the Nigerian Air Force and I think the civilians or the communities on ground, this could be a case of collateral damage. Now, collateral damage is a situation whereby there is the target is legitimate, a target is being targeted, and that target is legitimate, and perhaps maybe all precautionary steps were taken to minimize civilian harm. And this target, while hit, there was unavoidable civilian casualty. Now, the key things is that the target is legitimate, and there was all aspects or all considerations were taken to ensure that civilian harm was minimized. However, even after all that, there was civilian casualty in this. Now, this is different from when it's a mistaken bombing, where the target is not perhaps maybe a legitimate target. There is a misinformation or kind of there was a fog of war, and where a different target is engaged, which is not intended to be engaged. So this is intended. It was the civilian, the terrorists that were targeted. However, civilian casualty was reported. It's regrettable, but this could, depending on investigation, what is clearly seen, if there were all necessary steps taken to avoid this. And looking at this is where the issue of military necessity comes in. even when the target is legitimate, even when the target has been identified, you have to look at that time of taking out that target, were there other alternatives? Could you have avoided doing that? Could you have, is it something, was there the possibility that civilian property or civilian lives were going to be lost or civilian property destroyed? These are more things that when investigation is conducted is going to prove. So, and that's why even the military leaves no room for all this speculation. There's usually what is called the collateral damage estimate, where before you engage a target, you're trying to look at, are there civilian objects around? So that will determine whether that target should be engaged at that time, whether the type of weapon that should be used, and even the military necessity, must you engage that target at that time? So based on this, collateral damages are issues that happen, as unfortunate as they are. Is the extent of how much planning, how much how much necessary steps were taken to avoid this that will now come to play.
But there has actually always repeated, that is Commodore Solomon, is collateral damage. Now, Issa, it's been speculated that when successes are recorded in the fight against insurgents in Nigeria, there's some sort of a major setback. In tandem with this, how do you see the reconnaissance efforts of the Nigerian military in dealing with insurgency without having to lead into the loss of civilian lives?
Well, if I get your question right, you are talking about the success of the fight against terrorism. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So no individual, no citizen of any country will be happy when his country is under the siege of bandits and terrorists and other criminals. We always appreciate the effort being made by the Nigerian military, the sacrifice they make to keep this country safe and to keep it together. But we also have to bear in mind the fact that whatever we are doing it for people to live peacefully, to live their lives. But we have to also pay attention to the grievances of the people. Whenever people become what is described as collateral damage, lives are taken away, entire families are eliminated, and in some cases, entire generation of a family are eliminated. And these things create layers and layers of grievances that cannot be addressed without proper investigation. And that is why we always say that whenever these kind of incidents happen, we are not passing judgment. We are not saying that it was done deliberately. We are not always saying that it was solely targeted at civilians. What we are saying is that investigate the incidents, because if you don't investigate, you will never learn to avoid repeating the same mistake again. And unfortunately, Nigerian institutions and Nigerian military and other institutions are allergic to investigation. And when you tell them investigation, I don't think people will trust them to investigate themselves, because there was no occasion on which you can point out to a situation whereby they are fair and objective when they are investigating themselves. So that is why we are saying that investigation is very important in creating transparency and in bringing accountability. If investigation is not carried out, there is no way you can establish the truth. And people always want to see the consequences for anything. If, for example, you carry out an airstrike, you said you killed 20 terrorists and then you kill 2 civilians. How did that happen? Why civilians? Why are they involved? Why were they killed? I think even if it is one person that you kill in that process, that life has to be accounted for, and it cannot be dismissed as just 2, as some people are saying. And that is why Amnesty International is always saying that Nigerian military and other institutions should institute the culture of transparency and accountability and investigate this kind of things. That will help a lot in reducing grievances and increasing and escalating insecurity. You can see now in this country, we have Boko Haram going on, we have the bandits in the northwest, and we have another insurgency by Lakurawa in Sokoto and Kebbi State. And we now have another insurgent group, radicals, extremists in Kwara State. They are called Mahmuda or something like that. So we are confronting problems from all sides. And we have herders and farmers clashes and communal clashes in Benue and Plateau State. So these are the issues. I believe that we have to institute that culture of transparency so that we can be able to address these problems finally and decisively.
Okay, so Commodore Salmanu, I'm going to pick you from the point where Issa talked about the rise of insurgents with different nomenclature in the northern part of the country. Why are we saying, what is actually fueling the birth? I mean, you're security experts, fueling the birth of these new insurgents bodies or groups, so to speak? And two, are there really consequences for unintended casualties during accidental bombings?
Let me start with the last, because the first one is something that has been re-emphasized over and over. That is the cause of the insurgency itself, or whatever name it is, whether it's Boko Haram, whether it's the Lakura or any other group in the northwest or even in the north central or other parts of the country. We have to admit that there are other challenges, security challenges in other parts of the country. Now, but let me go to the second part, which is what happens when there are collateral damages. Collateral damages or mistaken bombings, of course, have consequences, both on the side of the operators, that is the military, and on the side of the civilians, that is the communities upon which this happens. Like I said earlier on, whereas the effect on the community is the same, lives are lost, properties are destroyed, the other part is just the technical part where you say, okay, was it mistaken identity or mistaken bombing, or it was a case of collateral damage. Now, in each instances anyway, what happens is that what my colleague is saying is that there is usually, first of all, when that happens, you stop that operation. You call it to a halt and say, okay, well, stop, let's do the immediate steps that should be. Kind of try to get the facts on the ground, go there, meet the communities, kind of establish the facts, what actually happened, what led to this, what are the issues. Then when that happens, so when you see the operation, then if there are casualties or injured and so on, so try to get them out of this area of operations and so on. Then you secure the area, then conduct preliminary investigations. These investigations usually are the military, which has procedures for this. I agree that there must be some level of oversight. Because it's so difficult to say when you investigate yourself that the tendency that you're going to gloss over certain things or you're going to actually not bring the issue the way it is there. So these investigations could be embedded and the level of transparency can be shown. But there is provision for those investigations. And when it is ascertained that this is what happens, there are different steps, like there are measures for civilian harm mitigation.
Okay, now, Comrade Samanu, sorry to butt in. I would like you to just hold on your thoughts on the different steps that you were talking about. We need to quickly go on a very short break, and when we return, we'll continue to look at this conversation around the killings of people, most especially civilians, during military operations against insurgency in the northern part of Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be back in a bit. Now, 20 terrorists neutralized, 21 motorcycles destroyed, even as the Nigerian Air Force launched an attack on insurgents' hideouts, of course, in Zamfara State. But that did not go down well because it also had to do with the loss of civilian lives. And we're trying to see how we can probably reduce or put an end to collateral damages when it comes to military onslaught against terrorists. And I've been talking to Wing Commodore Musa Isa Salmanu, retired, who is a security and development expert, and of course Isa Sanusi, who is the country director, Amnesty International Nigeria. So I come back to you, gentlemen, and quickly, Commodore Salmanu, I'd like you to conclude on the steps that you were actually talking about when it comes to addressing situations like this in about 30 seconds so that we can move on.
Just to correct one fact, Wing Commander retired. Wing Commander is different from Commodore.
Okay,
just for emphasis. I
of course.
also state that I'm not representing the military. I'm speaking in my personal capacity. So just like I said, there's provisions for all those procedures when that happens. One of that provision is to involve and engage an independent observer also, or someone that is independent. Invite like the Human Rights Watch or any organization that should be part of that investigation. Now, after all that is done, the facts are established, there is the public acceptance, if indeed, or stating the facts as they are, then it leads to the mitigation part, which is it could be involved up to reparation or ensuring that those that harm occurred or that those that the harm affected are treated, and so depending on the level of this harm. So what I'm just trying to say is that whereas these are incidences that happen in operations, there are measures that are put in place by the military to take care of this. Now, whether this is followed is another different thing, and I'm sure that's why human rights, my colleague from the other side is speaking, that this should be emphasized. So,
okay, so that's actually post-operation when there are events of casualties. But I'll come to Isa now. There is the international humanitarian law, Nigerian Air Force's Civilian Harm Mitigation and Response Action Plan that NAF is meant to adhere to during airstrike operations. But the way it is now, it seems as though NAF is not really obeying or attending to the tenets of this particular action plan. Or how do you see it?
Sorry, come again. I didn't get the entire question. Sorry.
Okay, so I said there is the international humanitarian law of the Nigerian Air Force's Civilian Harm Mitigation and Response Action Plan. It's an action plan that guides the Nigerian Air Force during operations of airstrikes against insurgents. But the way we see it is as though Air Force personnel are not really adhering to the terms of this particular action plan. Is that how you see it?
Well, that we don't want to speculate about what they have done or they have not done. And that is why we always believe that investigation is the best way to find out. But when you have civilian casualties, remember that in the last 2 years, we have so many incidents. Even this year in January, we have one incident of airstrike that killed 16 vigilantes in Zamfara State as well. And you remember in December 2023, there was a very huge, tragic airstrike that killed over 100 people attending a religious ceremony on the suburbs of Kaduna. And there was another one in Nasarawa State in January 2023, where some Fulani herders were killed based on what they say misleading intelligence or something like that. The Nigerian Air Force did the right thing. They apologized. They even visited the community, which is very good. And after that, you will expect that there will be more diligence. There will be more thorough when it comes to carrying out these airstrikes. But as far as our analysis is concerned, we always realize that these kind of airstrikes are always fatal because they are always carried out without careful regard for the lives of the people on the ground. And that is why we are saying that the Nigerian military has to review its operations. And if one mistake is done, another one is done, another one is done. We even this year we have like 3 or 4 of such airstrikes. So it will be difficult to convince any right-thinking person that these incidents are a mistake. They might be a mistake, but people will expect them to end. People will expect that, okay, when one mistake is done, the next mistake is avoided. The next mistake is avoided until we no longer have a mistake that claims the lives of people that are supposed to be protected. We are saying that priority should be placed on respecting the rules of engagement, respecting international humanitarian law, respecting international human rights law, and of all these laws have made it clear that protecting the lives of civilians in whatever circumstance is a topmost priority, because when civilians that you are supposed to protect end up becoming the victims of your actions, I think that is strongly ironic and unacceptable. So we are expecting the Nigerian military to learn from their mistake, and we hope that this will be the last time we will hear about this thing. We are expecting the Nigerian Air Force to, maybe if they need training, they should go for more training. Maybe if they need a review of their activities, they should go. If they need to engage the communities on ground so that they can be able to manage their operations without civilian casualties, they should engage the people on the ground. And if there is need for them to take steps that will change their operational methods or intelligence application, they should all do these things. We are all talking about this thing not because we want to find a fault with somebody or with some institution, but we are saying these things because we want the people to be protected, because these people that were killed, I have the list of their names.
All right.
I have the videos of their dead bodies being assembled for funeral. These people are human beings. They are human beings, even though we don't know their names, we don't know their backgrounds, but they are living a huge void in their communities, in their families, and we believe that there should be justice. We will look forward to what the Nigerian Air Force will do in terms of compensation, in terms of justice, in terms of review of what happened, so that Nigerians will know exactly why we end up with this number of people killed. All
right, Wing Commander Samanu, so what are your final thoughts on the speculation around lack of sophistication in the coordination of operations against insurgency? Just in about a minute.
So when issues like this happen, absolutely it shows that there is some kind of gap in either training, in weaponry, or in even the applications of those platforms. What I know is that there is constant review of all this, just like what you talked about, the civilian harm mitigation doctrine and so many other trainings that are ongoing. But what it shows is that this must be ramped up. It must be the intent, because of the recurrency or the number that this is recurring. It means that this a lot more has to be done, and that has to be done very fast. So steps must be taken to ensure that the Air Force, or even the entire military, re-strategizes, rejig its own kind of doctrine or policies in terms, or even rules of engagement in these operations. They have to review their platforms and their methods of application, and they have to also continuously improve on the way they engage the air-to-ground forces, so that there is coordination to avoid such mistaken bombings or even collateral damages. When that is done, I'm sure there will be a lot of reduction in these instances.
Okay. Well, it's quite traumatizing that, civilians who are actually running away from terrorists and vigilantes, and vigilante groups who are actually fighting terrorism are equally being killed. by those who are actually meant to protect them. Though it's a mistake, but then it's a mistake that needs to stop. I want to say a very big thank you to Wing Commander Musa Issa Salman, retired security and development expert, and of course Issa Sanusi, Country Director, Amnesty International Nigeria, for sharing your thoughts with us on the show. Thank you so much, gentlemen.